You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Beck Speltran, episode 38. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Each one of my favorite teachers has a different personality, a different delivery style, and even though many of those teachers have some of the same messages that they've taught me, and many of them are interwoven with each other, each one of my favorite teachers gives me something slightly different and unique from all the others. And isn't it so interesting that there is so much interconnectedness between my favorite teachers? For example, the first favorite teacher who I told you about was Brooke. She was introduced to life coaching by Martha Beck through seeing her on The Oprah Show. And I believe Brooke actually got her life coach training certification from Martha. And then remember, Oprah is one of my favorite teachers who I talked about on July's First Friday episode. So the favorite teacher who I want to tell you about today may be considered the mother of life coaching. It's Dr. Martha Beck. She is a best-selling author, speaker, podcaster, and of course, she's a coach. I can't remember exactly, but I think I was first introduced to Martha through another favorite teacher who I haven't even mentioned to you yet. That's Jenny Blake. And when I heard Martha and Jenny's discussion on Jenny's podcast, I just wanted to know more about Martha. So I looked her up and I found her amazing books. Maybe one thing that subconsciously attracted me to Martha is her masterful use of metaphors. You know I cannot resist a well-constructed metaphor, right? So one of Martha's books is called Finding Your Own North Star. Don't you love the idea of a beautiful, sparkly, shiny, extraterrestrial body being a guide for you? And the title implies that not everyone has the same North Star, and that it's something to discover. It hasn't always been visible or obvious. This is exactly what I needed at that time in my life when I found Martha Beck. I did want guidance and navigation, but I didn't think that I wanted it from someone else or from an external authority. Well, maybe I did a little, but I was also so resistant to that, and for a good reason. Martha gives me the feeling that she gets it. She understands where I'm coming from, where I am, and she knows I am trying to get somewhere. And so she lovingly and patiently and gently points out where I am trying to go, towards my own North Star. And she knows I can get there. And her belief is so strong, yet gentle and loving, that I can believe it too. It is a different energy than the kind of energy I get from Brooke or Jess or Eileen or Jen, the other favorite teachers that I've already told you about. So I really got interested in Martha's work after I had already been learning from Brooke and Jess and Eileen during a time when I thought I was lost and wandering. I knew I wanted something, but I didn't know what I wanted. Martha's book, Finding Your Own North Star, was a loving, gentle, encouraging voice for me during that time. She introduced me to so many ideas and concepts that even though I didn't know it at the time, those were foundational to me in transforming into who I am today and also who I'm working towards becoming. The most transformational concept that I learned from Martha was the idea of the social self and the essential self. Your social self is the version of you, the parts of your personality that are socialized into you through your family, your school, your community, your culture, the media that you consume. The social self is helpful for some elements of living your everyday life, but relying on the social self for too much could be detrimental. It's the idea of trying to please everyone, so you end up pleasing no one, and especially not yourself. The social self might be bland and generic, and there's no spark. It's actually doing a lot of things that you don't want to do. Living in your social self can disconnect you from your essential self. Well, what is your essential self? It is the complete, unedited essence of you. It's who you were as a child. It's who you are based on genetic makeup. It's your truest of true nature, who you were born to be. It's that spark that I mentioned that may be missing from the social self. When I heard Martha describe these two selves and understood how I had been on social self autopilot for so long and how I wasn't really in touch with my essential self and couldn't really recognize it or follow it, so much opened up for me. So much made sense that hadn't made any sense before. And maybe as you're hearing this now, maybe you can recognize how the tension between the social self and the essential self can create so much resistance. Maybe you've been feeling some of that resistance for yourself. If you want to learn more about understanding the differences between the social self and the essential self, I highly recommend that you check out Martha's North Star books. Another super helpful, super reassuring concept Martha shared with me is the metaphor of the butterfly coming from a chrysalis, not just transforming from a caterpillar. I'm sure I had heard the word chrysalis when I was a kid or maybe in a science class at some point, but as an adult, I had completely forgotten about it until hearing Martha describe how a butterfly doesn't just transform directly from a caterpillar, but instead first it breaks down, the caterpillar does, it breaks down into this maybe gooey cellular substance. And from that unrecognizable state, then the adult butterfly finally emerges. Martha has made a corresponding analogy for transformation, matching our human psychological transformation to a butterfly's physiological transformation. It means that the first phase of dissolving is completely natural and expected. It shows that we shouldn't expect reforming and full flight before going through the breakdown and the creating process. It takes so much of the stress and doubt off of going through a psychological transformation. And hearing about that process and seeing the parallels between my own human psychological metamorphosis and something simple and beautiful that we can observe in nature was so reaffirming and comforting and interesting too. Who knew, right? And the third concept that I learned from Martha is a technique of writing like a turtle, which I started using after noticing some resistance about writing content for this podcast. When I first started thinking about and planning the episodes, I was so excited to write and edit. Everything just flowed out of me and it all felt fun and effortless. And then, as the launch date got closer, and interestingly enough, this is about a year ago from when I'm recording this episode today, I switched from creative content creation, which was so fun and flowy and interesting, to technical self-education. I had to figure out how to record and edit and host the episodes, and this was all new to me. And it was not intuitive, and it was not easy or effortless for me. I dealt with frustration and resistance over those weeks, and I made it through. Obviously, here you are listening to the final product, but one of the sacrifices that I made as I was learning and experiencing those new skills was that I dropped my daily content writing habit. And then, it was so hard to start the habit up again. I would put it on my calendar every day, 1 hour of content writing, and then I would delay it or reschedule it or ignore it or save it for later and never do it. You get the idea. And then I was berating myself for not doing it and making up all sorts of stories about feeling rushed and not having my episodes ready in time. So I remembered Martha's story about how she reframed writing her dissertation and decided that instead of putting 1 hour on my calendar, I would just write for 20 minutes a day. Her turtle theory is basically go slow like a turtle, break everything down into the smallest step, break it down again until you get to the smallest step possible, and then just take that one next step. So that's what I did. I tried it. Thinking about writing for just 20 minutes a day did not create any resistance for me. So I would just sit down at my desk, set my timer, and start writing. Not concerned if I would finish it or if it would be enough or if it would be good, just knowing that 20 minutes of writing was helping me get closer to my goal. And then my timer would go off and I would notice that I was in the middle of a great idea and I would just keep on writing. So it worked perfectly. And I lost the resistance that I had been holding on to for some reason about doing something that I actually really enjoyed. Martha is so smart, and she has such a way with words and stories and metaphors. For example, I was looking for something else that Martha had written and just Googling around, and I found this heading in a list of 5 pieces of advice in Oprah's magazine. Once you trust yourself, you can trust everyone. Without even reading the rest of the paragraph or knowing the full context of that quote, I was like, true. But wait, why? It was so powerful and just so casually slipped into this list of cutely titled little pieces of advice with some adorable dog illustrations. I had an immediate gut reaction to this statement, and I knew that I wanted to discover and explore and figure it out before reading more about what she had to say about it. I wanted to understand it for myself. I wanted to know the truth of it for myself from my own perspective first. So before I tell you my reasons why that statement is so true, let me just repeat it to you so you can hear it again, and then give you a second so you can consider it for yourself. You can even pause this episode if you want more time so that you can think about it. Okay, here it is. Once you trust yourself, you can trust everyone. What did you think about that statement? Did you get it? Is it just completely obvious and I am making a big deal out of nothing? Or are you now profoundly aware of something that you weren't quite dialed into a minute ago? Here's what I love about that quote. The only reason why we don't or can't trust anyone else is we don't or can't trust ourselves. If you recognize the value and benefit of trusting others, much like unconditionally loving others, it shows that you have no expectations of them. They don't have to be or do or have anything to make you feel happy or to make you feel secure. You feel happy and you feel secure because of yourself, because of your own thoughts, not because of anyone else. So once you find that trust in yourself for yourself, knowing that you will always love yourself unconditionally, no matter what, you have always got your own back. You will never blame or punish or berate yourself. You also know you can trust anyone else in any situation as much as you want to, because they don't have to do or be anything else for you except just be exactly who they are. There may be some knee-jerk resistance coming up for some people when they hear or read this. For example, are you supposed to trust someone who has hurt you? Do you have to trust someone who has repeatedly lied to you? And I am not suggesting that you ignore your own boundaries. And I'm not suggesting that you don't follow through on consequences or reactions you've already decided on for yourself. So if someone has a boundary that she will get out of a situation if someone else is physically or mentally abusive towards her, she can trust the person to be who they are and act how they will act, and she can trust herself to leave if that person becomes abusive. She doesn't have to expect that person to act or be different than who they are. Same with the example of someone who's lied to you in the past. You can choose to trust yourself, your instincts, your intuition when the person tells you something. That way, if they lie or if they don't lie, you are not expecting them to change. You have already made the decision that you are trusting yourself. I could go on and on about all the lessons that I have learned from Martha, but for now, I'll just finish with a thank you card, a love note, and a fan letter. Martha, thank you for being an example of someone who is willing to drop it and start over. Because you shared your journey so publicly, and probably because I heard some commonalities in my own journey to yours, I sensed so much freedom and permission and liberty as I heard how you transformed yourself in so many iterations away from the product of your social self into your essential self. Thank you so much for not only being a coach, but then sharing your coaching practices and techniques in your books and coach certification program. I cannot tell you how many times I have mentally referred back to your description of the essential self and its contrast to the social self as I think about how and why I'm thinking and doing what I'm doing. My most favorite thing about you, Martha, is how smart you are. It is the most attractive quality of so many attractive qualities that you possess. And I know you are highly educated and were raised in an academic household, but I really think your amazing intelligence is essential to who you are. It's your essence. Even if you had been raised on a farm in Africa or been born in a time period prior to the Industrial Revolution, I just get the sense that your true gift, one of many, is your ability to take in, process, analyze, and then re-deliver inputs, information, and perspectives to all of us, either in your writing, your podcast, your coaching, and even probably just in one-on-one conversations too. Okay, that's it. Those were just a few of the lessons learned from Martha Beck. I hope you can tell from this episode how amazing she is, and I hope you go find some of her work for yourself. I'd also love to know if you are already a Martha fan. If so, what's your favorite book? Or where do you get your Martha fix? Send me an email at hi@bexby.org or leave me a comment in the show notes at bexby.org/Martha. And if you are one of my favorites, this week I sent you a curated list of a few more places to find and follow and consume Dr. Martha Beck, some of which I have referenced in this episode. So if you're ready to dive deeper into her work, check your email to find that list. If you are not one of my favorites yet, meaning that you're on my email list, what are you waiting for? Every Friday, I send an email with a link to the week's episode, plus something fun or extra or bonus for the people on my list. Plus, every once in a while, I also send an offer or give an announcement about something new or special that I'm doing. So just go to bexby.org/favorites to give me your email address and become one of my favorite people. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing about another one of my favorite teachers, and I hope she will be one of your favorite teachers soon as well. I will talk to you in 7 days. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at beckspeed.org to see how we can work together.